everyone and welcome back to my channel. As I mentioned in one of my previous videos, I have done quite a lot this month already, but you might remember that I mentioned that I think a lot of people connect me and my channel with literary fiction because it is a genre that I read a lot and it's a genre that I can never get enough of. So I thought that for today's video I would do a top 10 of my personal favorite literary fiction books. Now, I have also mentioned in a previous video that I'm still not sure how to define literary fiction. So I think I found 10 titles that are literary fiction, but feel free to correct me in the comments if I'm mistaken about some of the books, and also let me know if you have any clear definition of what this genre really is. But anyway, that's enough talk for now. Let's get into the actual book. In no particular order, I'm going to start with Fates and Furies by Lauren Groff. I stumbled across this book back in the days because it turns out it was Obama's favorite book of the year when it came out. That was intriguing to me. I then read it and I absolutely loved it. It's about a married couple that we follow from they are in their college years and then till they are a bit older. We follow their marriage and the ups and downs that come with a marriage. Basically, this story is about the fact that it takes two people to have a marriage, at least in most countries, and and therefore there will always be two perspectives on the same marriage. It's a book that plays a lot with perspective and it plays a lot with love and your mind. I just found it fascinating, and I do know that some people claim that this is not an accurate depiction of marriage, which I get, it might not be, but I still find it very interesting and definitely a book that I had to have on this list. Next book is one that I read very recently. I am standing here with Idaho by Emily Roscovich. This one comes with a gorgeous cover, but it's also gorgeous on the inside. This is a book that's hard to explain because the plot sets in at the very beginning, and this event that happens makes everything explode, and it's the catalyst for what happens in the rest of the book. But I can tell you that in the very first chapter we are with a woman in a truck sitting alone by herself, and we get a feeling that something is happening that is not good. Something mysterious is going on, and naturally you keep on reading to find out what that is. This is another one of those books that's about family dynamics. This couple has also got children, so it's not just about their marriage as with the other book. This one is more about their development and the family in general. I feel like I have fluff on my nose. Thank you, Zeus. Next book is one that I loved so much so that I had to reread it recently, and that is Commonwealth by Ann Patchett. Another one of those books that's about the characters. It has a heavy emphasis on the persons and their relationships. This one is set in California, I think, in a very hot state in the United States at least. It starts out with this party that is going on. People are having fun, they are dancing, they are talking, they are having a drink, and in the kitchen we follow a man who is squeezing oranges for orange juice, something like that. During this party he accidentally kisses another woman, and that is the starting point of the story, how that one event changes his life and his relationship to his family. It's a book that is very interesting in its narrative because in the second chapter you basically go to the end of the book and hear how everything ends, and then you go back and follow the chronological events up to that ending. So I found that quite fascinating, and this one is just a book that stands strong in my mind, and as I said, I reread it because that's how much I love it. Let's do a book that's not quite about family dynamics, but then again it is. Maybe that's how to define literary fiction. It's very much about the characters and their relationships. I don't know, but the next book is The World According to God by John Irving. It was hard to choose one John Irving book because I love most of his books, but I think this is my favorite because this is about a small boy and his mother who live together. They travel around in the country. They have a very close relationship naturally, since they only have each other, and the mother is kind of wacko. She is a funny character to read about, but sometimes you feel such empathy for the poor little boy who has to deal with her. John Irving is just a master at his craft of writing. As I said, love his books to pieces, and even though it was hard to choose between my darlings, this one is definitely one of my favorites of his. The Idiot by Elif Batuman is another recent favorite of mine. I actually read this one last month and loved it. So this one is about a college student who lives and studies in America, and she has a fascination with language and culture. Her parents are from Turkey, but she has been living in the States for all of her life. She does go back to Turkey every summer to visit her family, but for now she lives in the States, and it's basically a coming-of-age story about her growing up, becoming her own independent self, and her fascination with language makes her go to Hungary one summer to teach English as a second language. I love how this book has some beautiful observations on language and how we can play with it, and how it's got so many nuances. That's my life basically. I'm a language teacher and I find these observations absolutely fascinating. So this is one that had to be on the list as well. And also, just to end this quick talk, this one also comes with a romance that is very peculiar but highly entertaining. Then we have A Spool of Blue Thread by Anne Tyler, another book about family dynamics. I think Anne Tyler is known for writing great characters and writing about the dynamics between persons and how they shift and how they evolve, and it's just interesting to read her books. This one in particular I love. It's one of those books that I can't really point my finger to what it is I absolutely love about it. I think it's a combination of different things: the writing, the characters, the plot, which is not that action filled, but it's still quite interesting. And I found this book to be beautiful, and even though it doesn't have much of a plot, it's still intriguing enough to read and devour from beginning to end. Then I have White Oleander by Janet Fitch, which is also a movie, but I do recommend that you read the book first because the book is excellent. This is about our main character, who is a teenage girl whose mother is quite insane. So insane that one day she goes to prison and her daughter is left alone. She is placed in a foster care system and they find her a new family to live with. That happens several times throughout the novel because every time she finds a new family, things go horribly wrong. It's a book that will break your heart, but I also think it's an important book because it shows us how these lost children can sometimes suffer so horribly because of our system. I just found it to be beautiful. It's got a lot of symbolism in it, and it's also got beautiful writing. I've made it to the last 3 books, but as I said, these are in no particular order, so I wouldn't call them my favorite of the bunch, but they are really, really good. It's The Unseen World by Liz Moore. So this one is another book about a daughter and her father and their relationship. They live alone together, and their relationship is naturally very, very close. The father is a mathematical genius and the daughter is one as well, and she learns from her father all about mathematics and she finds it fascinating. She also finds it very disturbing when she one day realizes that her father starts forgetting things. This father, who is such an idol in her eyes and who never forgot things previously, this disturbs her a lot, and she tries to figure out what is going on without ruining their relationship. It's another beautiful story that will break your heart, but it also warms your heart because reading about this daughter and this father is just magical, and it's one book that I knew from the start I was going to love, and I was right. My Absolute Darling by Gabrielle Talent. I also mentioned this in a previous video, but nevertheless I had to include it once again in this video because it's just so good. So this one is about a teenage girl who lives alone with her father. This seems to be a common theme. The thing about this relationship of theirs is that her father is brutal in his upbringing of her. He never lets her choose for herself. He always has to know where she is and what she's doing. If she does something wrong, he teaches her in a very brutal way. It's hard to explain without spoiling the book, but it does come with some chapters that are absolutely gruesome. Definitely a book that all in all is important to read, fascinating to read, and just a beautiful piece of work. That leads me to the very last book on my top 10 list of literary fiction. You might have already guessed the book. I am talking about A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara. This one is set in New York City, and in the beginning of the book we follow 4 male college students who are friends and who enjoy each other's company. But we quickly realize that one of the guys has some disturbing troubles mentally, and during the book we then zoom in on him and another guy who is his closest friend. It's a book about identity and traumas. It's a book that will definitely break your heart. I like to say that this is a book that teaches you empathy. You care for this character of Jude, and you feel like once you finish this book, your heart will have been torn from your heart, broken in pieces, and then put back in. But it's a good feeling. It's, I don't know how to explain it. It's just a magical book that I consider one of my absolute favorite books of all time. Things are getting hot in here, so I better end this video. Feel free to let me know in the comments if there are other literary fiction books out there that you would like to recommend and that you don't think I've read yet. And until my next video, happy reading!